Okay, great. All right, so we started with a quick intro already. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit more about Alma Lasers, the company I represent. Alma develops, manufactures, and markets energy-based platforms for the past 20 years. Using a wide variety of technologies like lasers, ultrasound, radio frequency, and plasma. We play at a wide variety of categories, such as hair removal, body contouring, skin rejuvenation, feminine health, and more. We sell our platforms to clinics, meaning to doctors and beauticians mostly, through distributors or direct channels to about 90 countries worldwide. So there's some marketing complexity involved, since we need to create material for both B2B and B2C audiences, and also to different cultures. So the beginning of COVID-19 outbreak caught us in the marketing team here at Alma in the middle of execution of our marketing plans for 2020. We had a solid plan that combined new product launches, events, congresses, and of course, digital activities. We had no idea that everything is going to shuffle, and that we would need to reevaluate every plan we have made. So the huge arsenal of potential activities actually narrowed down to digital only. And my comfort was that I have a strong brand and a very well-defined branding and messaging approach. Despite that, I fairly quickly realized that it needs to go through some sort of transformation. So at the beginning of the COVID-19 outbreak, I quickly realized two things. Number one, that we need to react really quickly. I wanted to be the first one to respond in all means. And I didn't want to open any gaps between us and the competition. And number two, that we need to make a few adaptations to our marketing strategy. Now, adaptation is a key word here. One of my favorite quotes during the time of the quarantine was Charles Darwin's quote from about 200 years ago, saying that it's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives, it's the one that is most adaptable to change. And the key word here is adaptation. In times of crisis, when everyone's lives shuffle, so the marketing approach need to shuffle as well, across the board, starting from the actual product that needs to be re-examined, the branding or how we utilize the branding, the marketing messages, of course, the tone of voice, and also the platforms we utilize to approach our customers. So let's talk about regular times, not COVID-19 times. Our brand is a lot of things. It's a logo, of course, the face of the brand. It's a slogan, icons, visuals, colors, photography. But none of this represents your branding. Your branding is the gut feeling aroused when your consumer meets your product or anything that is associated with your product. It takes time to define what that gut feeling is and what is the gut feeling you want your customers to have when they meet your brand. But once you figure that out, the implementation is fairly easy. So now what happens in times of crisis, like in the COVID-19 crisis, is that gut feeling is still valid? Shall it be stimulated through the old ways, or maybe it should be tweaked? These are all questions that brands must ask themselves before they react in times of crisis. So the question to be asked is what needs to be reevaluated in times of crisis and uncertainty. And the first thing that I think that needs to be reevaluated is the brand values. We need to reconsider our brand values. What is the brand values and what is the brand strategy? How it will be affected after COVID-19? What type of transformation these values go through in times of crisis? Now, as a marketeer who strongly believes in the importance of strong branding, I view brand values as anchors. They are not to be touched. This is the holy grail of the branding fundamentals. yet they are still dynamic. It's like dynamic anchors. Values transformation does not weaken them, but the other way around, they make them more adjustable and strong and even unbeatable. So Alma's marketing strategy is basically led by 5 major values. 2 are functional, knowledge and well-being, and 3 are emotional, people first, daring, and modern life. These are the brand values we defined long time ago when we went through our latest branding process in 2018. Now, knowledge is not being delivered the same way these days, and well-being is being perceived a little differently than in the past, and so on. So I'm going to show you an example of how we at Alma mediated the transformation of our values through a short video.
Very nice.
This is hot from the oven. We haven't even started communicating yet, but we felt that it's a good opportunity to share our feelings and how we view our values and how they are transformed these days also to our audience. It's a good opportunity to interact with our audience again and strengthen the brand. So what also needs to be reevaluated is the message and the tone of voice. Now, the key here is to think contribution and not conversion. This is something that I also discussed on our last webinar together, Olga, if you remember. We were talking about that a lot because marketeers are trained to generate leads. This is rooted deep inside of our DNA. And we still want to generate leads, obviously, but the good old ways may be perceived opportunistic now. We want it to be perceived supportive. So that means that we also need to adapt the tone of voice of our messages. We don't want to be too pushy or hard sell with our messages. We also want to truly provide value by good content. So this was a good time for all of us to write new pieces for our blogs and adjust the material to be more light and soft, but still deliver our messages in a sensitive way and in a supportive way. The emotion you gain here from your customer side is trust, definitely something that you'd like your brand to be associated with. And it's a great opportunity to secure your customers' loyalty. One more thing that we've decided to focus on is shifting over to as much videos as possible. In times of crisis and uncertainty, we need to fight over our customers' attention. And naturally, in-depth, heavy material is less consumed and being skipped easily. This is the right time to shift over to sound and motion material and move away from static material that is easy for digestion. We know that the recall rate of videos is much, much higher than text or static images. There are a lot of research about that. And in the COVID-19 era, this fact is even more valid than ever. People are looking for instant messages that are fun to watch. This is the time to create interviews, testimonials, or any other video material you can think of and move away from just plain text and static images. One more thing that we took a stab at is use humor. So I think it's worth also to reevaluate the brand language of your messages. Find fun ways to deliver your messages, including humor. Even if it's far from your brand language, it's fine and even fun. Moving away from your traditional brand identity is legit these days in times of crisis. And as marketeers, it's a great opportunity to also enjoy it because at some point, we will need to go back to our established good old language. So I think it's a great opportunity to take advantage of it as long as we can. At Alma, we created these funny animation posts for our social media channels, not something that we would probably do during what we would call normal times. Our overall language is more serious, given the fact that we work at the medical arena and we speak to doctors. But during COVID-19, it felt like the right look and feel to use, and was perceived very, very well by our audience. Now, one more thing that I'd like to talk about is some examples from other fields, from other atmospheres. And I also have some examples of not that well-delivered communication pieces by big commodity brands outside of the medical arena. We can learn a lot from that as well. As COVID-19 continued to spread around the globe, we've seen two brand approaches. Some claim that the right approach is to hold back when it comes to PR and marketing, of course, and avoid shouting from the rooftops at this time. The second approach was to not go dark, as meaningful relationships can be built and maintained even during a crisis. So a good example is Nike, which put out a campaign encouraging people to play inside as governments enforced social distancing measures. As per Nike's usual standards, the copy was, if you ever dreamed of playing for millions around the world, now is your chance. The campaign was also reposted by Nike's brand ambassadors, including Cristiano Ronaldo and Michael Jordan and LeBron James. It was simple, effective, and also a very good compliment to the $15 million the company donated towards COVID-19 efforts. Now, I also have two failures, and these failures were conducted by very big brands, McDonald's and Coca-Cola. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you is not to laugh at them, but just to show you that also big brands fuck up sometimes, and it's okay. I mean, you know, this is a very interesting marketing exercise that was never taught in any academy or university, and there's a lot of trial and error involved. McDonald's Brazil ran an ad that showed its iconic golden arches being separated to indicate social distancing. And also Coca-Cola bought an ad in New York City's Times Square and extended the space between the letters that split its brand to also indicate social distancing. So not only is the choice to buy an out-of-home placement, an expensive one, with a message that encourages people to stay home, is incredibly ironic, obviously, but campaigns like these are also slammed as opportunistic during a time where donations in kind and money would be much, much better appreciated. Buying a media like an out-of-home ad in Times Square obviously is super, super costly, and the customers did not receive it well at all. It got a lot of criticism, and very quickly they removed these two ads. So just examples as these as well. I think we can also, this can also be very educational for us. Before I'll finish the presentation, I just want to say a word about the upcoming workshop that Olga presented. I'm very thrilled to be part of it. I'm going to talk about branding and messaging, a topic that is very, very close to my heart. I went through a few branding processes throughout the last years in different companies I've worked at. And I'm going to focus on the importance of a good branding process, of the importance of having good branding, period, but also how important it is to go through a established and organized branding process. And we're also going to go practical. I mean, I'm going to give you some case studies, good examples, bad examples, and also walk you through a short branding process just to kind of highlight the things that you need to focus on in order to support the brand that you represent. We're also going to talk a lot about messaging and how to use the right phrasing in the right time. This was just a very quick glimpse, you know, talking about branding in uncertainty times and crisis times, but obviously, hopefully we will go back to normal and we will start doing our old traditional branding, and I think it will be a very useful toolbox for many marketeers in action and also soon to be marketeers.
Perfect. Thank you, Tal. It was an amazing presentation, and I want to add on a personal note that I'm acquainted with Tal just for around a year, but I know her work, I think, for 4 years, because we worked in competition, and I was watching what she is doing, and I was admiring her efforts. So there are not so many people in marketing, as Tal said. Many are very, very oriented toward lead generation, and there are not so many people who are really oriented and have this passion for branding and messaging. And I think Tal is one of the people who really knows how to do it. Personally, I'm looking forward to learn from her.
Thank you.